It's a problem which is endemic, particularly in American society.
It's disappointing, upsetting, but also like it's not gonna change.
It seems like something that's always kind of been a problem, and people just kind of keep ignoring it.
It's something that's a part of American culture for decades, and it's been part of the culture going back to the Revolution.
So, stricter gun laws, definitely a good idea. I'm not sure how strict. I mean, I definitely don't support a full ban on guns. I think that's counterproductive and unnecessary. But, I mean, it doesn't have to be this easy to get a gun.
For me, gun education is the number one priority. If you grow up in a household with guns, you shouldn't know where the guns are, and you should also know better than to ever point a gun at someone. And just like beyond that, I don't think an 18-year-old should be able to get an automatic weapon, whether it's a pistol or rifle. Like, yes, they should be able to get a rifle, but not necessarily automatic, because that's just unnecessary.
What has to be done about this issue, from my point of view, is there has to be a fundamental restructuring of society so that we don't live in one which is based upon violence and subjugation of one class of people so that another very small class can get so much wealth in society.
We need to push the culture of the country away from glorifying guns. And that is something that is not going to be a policy change, and it's not going to require, or you can't just put a lot of resources or a lot of funds into it. It's something that has to come from the people, and it's might be a generational change.
I don't know what the best option is. I think arming teachers is not your best option unless they're military people and maybe they want to be armed, and that's really up to them. But at the same time, you're putting the gun in the school, and that just makes it easier for shootings to happen. All you have to do is take down the teacher, and then you already have a gun there. So in my opinion, that would just make it worse. But I don't know what to do besides make it less accessible for young people to have access to automatic rifles, essentially.
There needs to be a more serious conversation about it than what's happened in the past, where just people forget about it after a month. But I don't know where that conversation is going to end.
School shootings are extremely difficult to do anything about because there are a lot of schools in the United States, and fortunately there's not much you can do other than trying to identify those who exhibit the behavior that we would deem as dangerous, and then trying to handle that beforehand. And you can only do so much of that.
Well, in terms of school shootings, ever since the Columbine massacre, there have been thousands of armed police officers which have been put in public schools, and none of those cops that have been put into public schools have stopped those shootings. In the latest shooting in Florida at Stoneman Douglas, there was an armed police officer on site at the school, and that cop didn't go in and stop the violence which was going on at the time. But what has happened is that those cops which have been put into the public schools have been used to discipline disproportionately black and brown students, and arresting them for minor behavior violations, which in schools without cops would have been punished with detention or suspension. Those kids get criminal records, and there's been very much an escalation by having police there, and the way that you reduce the number of school shootings, even though it sounds hand-wavy, is to make a less violent society. And without changing without changing the fundamental amount of violence in society, these school shootings will continue to happen.